air conditioning all summer long and hasn't, and running space heaters would be about probably the same, as far as using power. And I just know it's a lot cheaper than gas, and so it's a definite route. The other thing to look for is these space heaters. You will find that on the internet they have these huge floor models, and of course I was looking at them. You always think the bigger the better, and that's not necessarily the case. I saw these little space heaters, and they were called Heat Masters. They got at a local hardware store here. They're about 10 inches high, and these things put out the exact same power as these big floor models that are costing $60 and $70. And so for the price of one of these floor models, you can buy two of these smaller ones and heat up two different rooms, And from what I've heard, these little heaters, anything that can put out 1,500 watts at a 5120 BTU, they will heat up your room quick, and they do a good job. And I've heard a lot of good things about them. And so, it doesn't always mean bigger better. Bigger is the better. The little space heaters might be a lot safer to have around. Maybe not. Depends on your own circumstances. Especially if you have kids running around, animals. You don't want to get anything near these heaters in case they fall on them. But again, something to think about. Especially the Lord is warning you, leading your thoughts and guiding you on ways to stay warm this winter. In case of the high gas bills, you can't afford gas, can't afford oil. You can think about these little electric space heaters. And the ones I got were $26.95 a piece. And so I just put that out there to share with people my research on that. I'm glad I took the little trip over to the hardware store to check that out myself. And of course, obviously, a wood burner stove is your best bet on anything. But I know that there's probably 50% of this audience that there's no way they could go out and put a wood burner stove in their home. And so if you're in the country or you own your own home and you can modify your home to install one of these wood burner stoves with proper ventilation, that's your best bet. I mean, that's better than even an electric heater. But for those of you who live in the cities, or you rent your homes, or you live in apartments or wherever, and you just don't have access, you can't do that with a wood stove, think about a backup generator with the electric heaters. If you don't have a generator, see if the Lord's leading you to get a generator now. Don't wait for disasters to happen, because when disasters happen, it's already too late. I mean, every hardware store in the area is going to be long lines are sold out of generators. And, what if a disaster happens and it's one of these weeks where you're just so broke you can't pay attention? You can't afford a generator. And so think ahead of how to prepare for disasters coming that are inconveniences that you don't expect. Of course, the worst time always being in the wintertime, because staying warm is always much more of a necessity than staying cool. And it seems like from what I've always researched about the Russians being, if they were ever going to attack the United States, it would be in the wintertime at a holiday time, Christmas. And so for Chuck Youngbrand to come out and say that about December, about them attacking, that's why it really piqued my eyebrows. Because even back in the 80s, studying about the Cold War, that would have been their plan even then, back in the 80s, to strike during Christmas time in America, because nobody's paying attention to anything but the holiday. And it's a focal point, and of course, attacking in cold weather does the most injury and suffering to the greater amount of people. And for some of you that live in warmer states, you're not going to be as affected by it. Some of you in other countries might want to take heed, just because, stocking up and preparing for the inevitable, the things that are coming. And they apply to you too, because these things are going to be happening all over the world. So it doesn't really matter where you are. Start stocking up, be prepared for inconveniences coming. Listener call in line, 260-356-2611. Call in with your questions or comments. Posted a couple of articles on my website this week at thewatcherfiles.com. And I wanted to go over this one article that I posted just because it was a great article. And it was called America Meltdown, Get Ready for the Next Unnatural Disaster. And, it's like I've been saying, Hurricane Katrina was a HAARP, a weather-induced weather weapon hurricane. You could call it a harpicane. And I had information on my website, the Watcher Files, from David Bay's information at Cutting Edge about the NBC weatherman who was coming out with the same information, that this was a guided hurricane. It was a man-made hurricane from weather weapons. You can also catch information from Jim McCanney on it and some other sources that I've put on the site in my blog in regards to Hurricane Katrina. I'm not going to get into Katrina much this week. But there's more coming. You know, at the same time that the film on that oil movie was being showed on the FX network, Oil Storm, which totally portrayed New Orleans being hit and our Gulf Coast being hit and losing oil refineries and stuff. At the same time they were showing that one, they were also showing Houston getting hit and Houston's refineries being destroyed. And so it makes you kind of raise an eyebrow here, you know. And now we're hearing what? Tina, or whatever her name is, got a hurricane kind of hanging out the Gulf Coast off Houston. You know, they're sitting hanging it out there thinking about it now. Going to bring it in and slam Houston. We're going to take a break. And we'll be back in about 2 minutes. Listener call line 260-356-2611 if you want to call in during the break. And but we'll be back. We'll be right back in about 2 minutes, folks.
This is the Reality Radio Network on Telstar 5 Transponder 5 and on the internet at realityradionetwork.com.
I got an email here from a listener at Yahoo. You can send me questions or comments at SherryTalkRadio at yahoo.com.